I knew they were going to screw me when I walked into that boardroom, and my nameplate had been replaced with team support. Not senior marketing strategist, not director of brand innovation like Trent promised during our one-on-one last quarter, just support. Like I was a spare battery pack they kept around for emergencies. I sat down anyway, smiled, took notes, even nodded at Trent's tired dad joke opener. But my ears were ringing by the time he launched into my campaign, my language, my sequencing, my damn story arcs, like he'd conjured them from the corporate ether over his morning kombucha. I was the ghost in the room, not invisible enough to ignore when they needed a fire put out or a last-minute deck polished for the board, but never quite visible when the credit rolled in. I had crafted the formula, a campaign structure so airtight, even our interns started mimicking it in their coffee shop startups. I refined it over 7 years, reverse engineering emotional triggers, brand memory loops, and micro-moment metrics that stuck harder than glitter on a kindergarten craft table. And every single time it worked, Trent would pop his collar and say, "See? Just a little team synergy." No, Trent. Synergy didn't spend 3 sleepless months a/B testing ad copy while your ass was at Burning Man trying to find your authentic self. And hey, while we're here, 97% of you listening to this ain't subscribed. Which is wild considering y'all binge these stories harder than Trent binges cold brew before earnings calls. So if you've got a thumb and a soul, smash that follow button and help me hit my first ever 10,000 subscribers. It means the world and keeps the revenge warm. Anyway, where were we? Right, the ghost, that was me. I started as an intern straight out of a second-tier state school with a bootleg laptop and a panic attack permanently parked behind my sternum. But I was hungry, stayed late, listened more than I talked, wrote draft after draft of pitch decks until they bled dopamine and dollar signs. And when I cracked the formula, one that turned our stagnant wearable brand into a viral juggernaut, Trent smiled like a man taking credit for discovering fire. "You're a rock star, Elise," he said after that first quarter blew past projections. "You've got a real gift for packaging." Then he took the stage at Tech Future Expo and described the entire campaign as his vision. Packaging, like I was just the wrapper. And the thing is, I let it slide. At first, because I believed in the team. Because I thought maybe someday someone would actually see me. I kept a folder on my desktop, innocuously named Lunch Break, filled with version histories, time-stamped iterations, drafts with my initials, Slack exports, even the original whiteboard photos from those late nights when the cleaners thought I lived there. I never said a word, just kept building. But ghosts get tired too. I watched them give the Rising Innovator Award to Jared, the guy who once spelled strategy with 2 E's in a proposal. I watched press releases list Trent as the architect of campaigns I'd written from scratch, and I smiled, I clapped. I took the free tote bags and went back to work, but somewhere between the 5th stolen pitch and the 8th ignored promotion, something in me calcified. Hope turned to resolve, and the folder called Lunch Break, let's just say it had a much hungrier purpose. The conference room smelled like burned coffee and overcompensating cologne. Trent had that look, the smug kind, like a cat that just knocked over your grandmother's urn and wants you to thank it for decluttering. "Elise," he said, steepling his hands like a dollar store guru, "first off, incredible year. The Synergy campaign, phenomenal work. You really brought the team's energy together." Synergy, there it was again, that magic word that somehow vacuumed up my hours of labor and spat them back out as communal effort. Like the team stayed up till 2 a.m. rewriting the headline that got us the 500% engagement spike. Like the team built the neuro-branding feedback loop I tested for 6 straight quarters. "Sure, Jan." I glanced across the table. Jared, who once confused B2B with BBQ in a sales doc, was grinning like a Labrador who just got a treat. He looked like the kind of guy who uses his college email address because he thinks it makes him sound plugged in. "Which brings me to some exciting news," Trent continued. "We're promoting Jared to associate director. He's really shown initiative, leadership instincts, and a fresh generational perspective." I felt something click in the back of my skull. Not a snap, not a rage flash, just a click. Like the moment a seatbelt locks before a crash. Quiet, final, I folded my hands. "So I'm assuming this means the promotion we discussed last year is off the table?" Trent didn't miss a beat. He gave me that patronizing smile I'd grown to recognize, the one that belonged on a bad Tinder profile, captioned, "I know what women want." "Elise," he said, like he was about to mansplain the concept of air, "you're absolutely vital to the team. Leadership requires a certain outward-facing charisma. You're more of a behind-the-scenes asset. Think glue, you keep us together. Glue, not fire, not vision, not the one who built the damn house. Glue." My nails dug into the fabric of my skirt, but I smiled like a corporate Stepford wife. "Got it," I said softly. "Thanks for the clarity." Trent nodded, relieved. "That was the trick. They only respected your silence if they thought it meant obedience." I waited 3 beats and added, "I'd like to schedule an exit interview." The smile cracked. "Sorry," he said, blinking. "HR," I said more firmly. "I'll email them this afternoon. I want to make sure we do this right." "Elise," he chuckled, nervous now, "no need to be hasty. This is just a speed bump. We value you. You are the team. I stood up, adjusted my blazer, and looked him in the eye for the first time all meeting. Trent, I said, if I'm the glue, then congrats, you've just unstuck me. I left the conference room with my spine straight and my stomach twisting. Not from fear, from focus. The kind of razor-edged calm that hits just before a long game begins. At my desk, I opened the lunch break folder one last time, and just before the clock hit 6 p.m., I clicked send on my resignation letter. It was polite, it was brief, but the timing, impeccable. HR lady blinked at my resignation letter like it was written in ancient Sumerian. Elise, she said slowly, like I might be concussed, are you sure? You're kind of essential. That word again. Essential. The corporate synonym for cheap labor that doesn't complain. I gave her the same smile I used during fire drills and fake birthday parties for people who thought branding meant slapping a QR code on a mug. Very sure, I said. Just time for something new. She nodded too fast. Trent will be surprised, I bet. When I stepped into his office, Trent was fake typing on his laptop like a kid pretending to drive a parked car. He looked up, saw the envelope in my hand, and did that performative eye-widening thing actors do in prescription drug commercials. Elise, wow, we didn't see this coming. You didn't see me for 8 years, Trent. But I kept my face neutral, polite. Corporate mask slipped on like armor. I appreciate the opportunities, I said. Is this about the promotion? He asked, faux confused. Because listen, I talked to upper management and no need, I cut in gently. My mind's made up. He leaned back in his Herman Miller throne, sighing like I'd just asked him to cancel his golf trip. You're making a mistake. You've built something here. I did, I said, and now I'll go build something else. That got him. He blinked, calculating. He wasn't used to women who didn't flinch when he turned on the TED Talk tone. I stood, shook his hand, and walked out before he could recycle another metaphor. The goodbye email was vanilla, thankful, full of growth and new chapters. The kind of thing LinkedIn eats for breakfast. I packed my desk methodically, left the succulents, took the hard drive. The building looked smaller on the way out, or maybe I just felt bigger. At home, I opened a bottle of wine that had waited 3 years for a real occasion. I sipped it slowly, booted up my laptop, and dragged a file titled Final Assets Authorship Proof into the copyright portal. It was all there: early concept maps, timeline logs, email drafts, internal decks with revision trails, even the napkin photo from 2018, where I scribbled the first outline in a bar napkin, while everyone else was doing tequila shots at the offsite. I attached the document trail, signed the application, and clicked submit. There wasn't a dramatic music swell, no confetti, just the soft ping of confirmation. But I sat there, alone in my apartment, staring at that screen like it was the first breath after being underwater too long. It wasn't revenge yet. It was something colder. It was evidence. The LLC paperwork came through on a Tuesday so quiet you could hear the dust settle on my windowsills. I named it North Anchor Strategies. Sounded nautical, decisive, and just vague enough to hide how much of it was run in sweatpants from a studio apartment that still smelled faintly of old toner cartridges and disappointment. I didn't post some grand announcement. No inspirational quote cards. No goodbye cruel corporate world blog post with hashtags about healing. I just updated my LinkedIn header to brand architect, narrative systems consultant, turned off profile notifications, and started cold emailing startups with names that sounded like probiotic drinks or obscure meditation apps. Hi, I help brands translate chaotic vision into compelling frameworks that actually convert. No mention of my old firm. No mention of the formula. Just fresh narrative architecture, a phrase I cooked up while folding laundry and trying not to have a panic attack about health insurance. 3 weeks in, I landed my first client. A medium-sized tech company launching a wearables line, sleek, bold, hungry. Run by a woman named Viga who had eyes like polished obsidian and didn't blink unless you said something worth listening to. Why'd you leave corporate? She asked during our second Zoom call, voice smooth like she already knew. I smiled, wanted more control, more impact. She nodded. Smart. We're not interested in fluff. Want to rip out the old playbook and light it on fire. I could work with that. We signed a short-term contract. I got to work. I didn't copy the formula, I evolved it. Stripped it to the studs, then rebuilt it for post-algorithm world, more story hooks, cleaner loops, variable tension arcs that tracked not by campaign phase but by user intent. I called it something new, narrative cascade framework. I used different colors, different metaphors. But the bones, the science of it were mine, and this time, so was the signature. It felt terrifying, like I was bluffing my way through a heist. Every time Viga said she loved a pitch, my inner critic whispered, they'll find out. You're just a knockoff of yourself, but every deliverable landed, every metric ticked up. I bought a decent desk, replaced my creaky chair, got a proper domain and ditched the Gmail address. Some days I missed the security, the team lunches, way people used to look at me with deference, even if they didn't really see me. But most days, I missed nothing. Because this time I didn't have to shrink myself to fit the room. This time I was the room. The message hit my inbox at 9:04 a.m. on a Thursday, subject line, "Did you see what Brandform is doing?" Sent by an ex-colleague I hadn't heard from since the farewell sheet cake. Attached was a teaser video from my old firm, lasting across LinkedIn like a confetti cannon full of stolen ideas. Their big new campaign was called Future in Focus. It had a minimalist white-on neon logo, a slogan I had coined 4 years ago in a brainstorming doc titled Internal Don't Show Trent Yet. I clicked play, and there it was. My sequencing, my framework, my goddamn formula dressed up in motion graphics and narrated by a British voice actor to make it sound fancier. The world doesn't need more noise, the voice said. It needs emotional gravity, story loops, and identity anchors. My phrase, identity anchors. I'd invented that term after watching users pause on a specific ad slide in our eye-tracking heatmap study. I'd explained it to Trent using a metaphor about Velcro for the human brain. He laughed, called it nerd gold, took it to the board, got a bonus. Now here it was, center stage in their revolutionary campaign, being praised in the comments by half the tech industry and a couple VCs who used to ignore my emails. I didn't blink. I just sat there, jaw clenched, pulse tapping behind my ears like a metronome on fire. Some part of me, the tired, polite part, whispered, let it go. But a louder part, the version of me that had stayed silent in meetings while my own slides got rebranded with someone else's initials, that version stood up inside me like a lawyer walking into court with a full binder and zero fucks. I picked up the phone and called Nadine, my IP attorney. She answered on the second ring, cheerful and sharp as ever. North Anchor Strategies, how's the empire? I didn't waste time. It's time. There was a pause, then a quiet exhale that almost sounded like a smile. I was hoping you'd say that, she said. I've got your case file ready. I just need to know, when do you want them served? I looked back at the video, now looping silently on my screen, a parade of executives beaming over things they didn't create, like toddlers showing off crayon drawings done by the nanny. I tapped the spacebar, paused it on Trent's face. During the launch, I said, live if possible. Mid-sentence would be ideal. Nadine laughed. You always did have a flair for timing. But it wasn't timing, it was justice. And I'd waited long enough. The cease and desist was 43 pages long and read like the opening salvo of a corporate war crime tribunal. Nadine didn't hold back. Every legal clause was a scalpel, not a hammer. She included the registration certificate, the timestamped drafts, Slack screenshots with original language, calendar invites, metadata, pitch decks, even the original voice memo, where I muttered identity anchors into my phone while half asleep on a Greyhound bus in 2019. We weren't asking them to stop. We were ordering them. I sat cross-legged on my floor, surrounded by the physical receipts of a life lived in unnoticed brilliance. USB drives labeled Do Not Delete, notepads full of chicken scratch, a wine-stained coaster with a slogan on the back that turned into a six-figure campaign. I rewatched the Future in Focus teaser with a stopwatch, matching every moment to my own material like a forensic scientist, matching DNA strands. One line, lifted word for word from a confidential pitch deck I'd written after an emergency rebrand in 2021. Even the inflection in the narrator's voice matched my old rehearsal notes. Trent hadn't just plagiarized my strategy. He'd Frankensteined my entire intellectual skeleton, bolted it to a podium, and shoved it into the spotlight wearing a rented tux. The plan was surgical. Nadine coordinated with a process server who specialized in discreet public delivery. They wore a press badge and carried the envelope in a camera bag. The time was set, 11:14 a.m., 5 minutes into the core segment of the launch, just as Trent would be introducing the campaign framework. Do you want to warn them first? Nadine asked. No, I said. They might try to pivot if they catch wind. They won't, I said, because Trent thinks I'm glue. I kept the rest of the week clear. No meetings, no calls, just sharpening the blade and choosing which version of the statement Nadine would issue to the press after the storm hit. One was ice-cold legalese. The other, a tactful but withering truth bomb that would go viral on Founder Twitter before lunch. Every angle was covered, every timestamp verified. I wasn't just ready. I was bulletproof. That night I didn't sleep. I didn't need to. My adrenaline ran like engine oil. I walked 5 miles in the dark just to hear my boots hit the sidewalk. I stared at the skyline and thought about every time I downplayed my own genius because it made someone else uncomfortable. Every time I'd watched my work exit another man's mouth like it was his idea. Let them watch tomorrow. Let them scramble. Let them learn. Because the campaign might have been called Future in Focus, but the only future they had left was the one I let them borrow. And that lease was up. The live stream opened with a drone shot of their new HQ, glass walls, ego height signage, everything designed to scream we matter. A synth-heavy track throbbed underneath an overly dramatic voiceover. Innovation isn't coming. It's already here. I sat at my kitchen table in sweats, eating cold toast and sipping coffee that had gone bitter 30 minutes ago, but my eyes never left the screen. A countdown hovered. 00, 10, 00, 0900, 08. I didn't blink. Trent walked out on stage to thunderous applause, wearing a navy blazer and that performative humility smile he saved for VC events and Instagram stories with his rescue dog. Thank you all for being here, he began, pacing like a TED Talk knockoff. Today isn't just about a product, it's about a mindset shift, a new kind of story. Something we're calling his mic glitched. He paused, confused, then tried again. Something we're calling, someone offstage rushed forward, whispering into an earpiece. Trent turned his back to the crowd slightly, nodded stiffly, then checked the tablet in his hand. That's when it happened. The message hit him mid-sentence. I could see it, the exact second his face folded in on itself like cheap origami. He blinked. Once, twice. The camera cut to the massive LED screen behind him, which flickered, no, shuddered, before displaying the first slide of the campaign deck. It froze there. Just long enough for viewers to read the words emotional gravity/identity anchors/loyalty loops trademark, my exact sequence, before the image warped into a system error screen. Trent's mouth was moving, but the audio was gone. The live stream chat exploded. What just happened? Is that part of the presentation? Elmau, that's Elise's old campaign, isn't it? Behind Trent, 3 team members frantically huddled over a laptop. One of them made a slicing motion across their throat. Then silence. The feed cut to black. I stared at the screen, waiting. There was a full minute of dead air, followed by the abrupt appearance of the "We'll be right back" card. Music returned, this time off-key, like even the system was having a breakdown. My phone buzzed once. Nadine, delivered in hand on camera, beautiful execution. I took a bite of cold toast, chewed slowly, smiled, they got it. It wasn't just a ruined launch. It was a public autopsy of stolen work. And Trent? He'd finally learned what it feels like to watch someone else tell your story and realize too late that you never owned it. By noon, Brandform Implodes mid-launch was trending on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Reddit/r/TechSnark with equal parts schadenfreude and speculation. Someone had screen recorded the glitch live, zoomed in on Trent's reaction, and set it to a slowed-down version of Sound of Silence. A TikTok with the caption "When the IP lawyer hits harder than the product demo" hit 300K likes in under an hour. By 2 p.m., tech news outlets had picked it up. No one had the full story yet, just whispers about an urgent legal intervention, copyright dispute, and one particularly delicious phrase in The Verge's headline: alleged theft of intellectual property forces, abrupt halt of multi-million-dollar campaign. Their stock dipped 11% before market close. By 3:30, the leaks started. A junior staffer anonymously told Business Insider the campaign had been built entirely around a proprietary framework by a former employee who legally registered it before departure. Another source confirmed the cease and desist arrived during the keynote and threw the whole marketing team into DEFCON 1. By 4 p.m., my phone was a live wire. A text from Jenna, who once iced me out of a pitch meeting to suck up to Trent, popped up. "Hey girl, crazy day. Just wondering, was that you? If so, iconic. Face with tears of joy also. Any chance you're hiring? Delete." Voicemail from an investor I'd once watched fall asleep during my presentation, but who now apparently had time to circle back for coffee and brainstorm synergies. Ignore. A LinkedIn DM from a senior strategist at my old firm. Just wanted to say I always knew you were the brain behind those campaigns. Hope you're doing well. Any interest in consulting? Mark as unread. It wasn't that I didn't feel the thrill, I did. Somewhere beneath the adrenaline and the surrealism, I felt something like justice. But it was buried under layers of restraint, a learned stillness from years of having to sit on my hands while someone else took the bow. So I didn't gloat. I didn't tweet. I didn't even pour champagne. I opened my laptop, clicked into the press strategy folder Nadine had prepared, and let her take over. The statement she sent on my behalf was clean, neutral, unshakable. North Anchor Strategies confirms that a cease and desist order was delivered to Brandform Inc. due to unauthorized usage of proprietary intellectual property developed and registered by Elise M. prior to her resignation. No further comment at this time. That was it. No drama, no shade, just the facts delivered like a scalpel to the jugular. But privately, quietly, I watched the flame spread. Because for years I'd been asked to dim myself so others could shine. And now they were burning under a spotlight they thought they'd stolen, only to find it was wired directly to me. The rooftop bar overlooked the city like it had earned the right to judge it. Below us, the skyline blinked its nervous neon, and traffic thrummed like the hum of something barely held together. But up here, everything was soft lights and quiet power. Viga, CEO of the rival brand, my client, my ally, clinked her glass against mine. To theft, she said with a smirk. The best marketing strategy money can't buy. I laughed. It was the kind that came from deep in the chest, not the polite exhale you do in meetings to let men think they're funny. This was joy with an edge. The kind that had waited years in my gut, sharpening itself against every ignored idea and every stolen slide deck. To authorship, I corrected, raising my glass again, the real kind. The campaign I built for Viga's company hadn't just landed, it detonated. Clean storytelling, sleek arcs, emotional magnetism that pulled audiences in like gravity. Investors ate it up. Users believed it. The press called it the most resonant brand voice of the year. None of them knew it was a resurrection, the bones of a stolen idea reborn with teeth. And across town, the ripple effects hadn't stopped. Trent, once the golden boy of the boardroom, had been placed on sabbatical, The HR term for you screwed the pooch, but we still have to pay you. Rumors swirled. Internal reshuffles, stockholder panic, a full-on rebranding effort so desperate it might as well have come with an apology playlist. Their new press release was a word salad of vision reinvestment, next-gen transformation, and my personal favorite, a renewed focus on originality and ethical innovation. Try saying that with a straight face while your house is still on fire. Then the email came, from a new name I didn't recognize. Subject, opportunities at Brandform. I opened it, only out of curiosity. The body was short, too casual. Hi Elise, I'm the new head of marketing at Brandform. We're reshaping things over here and would love to talk about any interest you might have in returning, in a leadership capacity. Let me know if you'd be open to reconnecting. I stared at it for a second. No rage, no grief, just clarity. I didn't reply. I dragged it to trash like it weighed nothing. Then I finished my drink with Viga, leaned back in my chair, and let the city lights wash over me. I didn't need a press tour. I didn't need a revenge monologue. I'd already won. They spent years pretending I didn't exist. Now, they can't launch without me. You're the real MVPs of the office jungle. Thanks for watching. Smash that subscribe button, or the coffee pot might just forget your next brew.